Hello, everyone. I'm Coach Ariel Starbird. I'm a holistic health and fitness coach. And today I have with me Shiloh Thompson. She's a certified naturopath and functional medicine practitioner. Shiloh, I would love for you to share a little more of what your expertise is, your education. I know you have over 30 years of experience in the field, right?
Yeah, actually, I was born into the field. So my mom and my grandmother were also naturopaths. My grandmother was actually an herbalist, and it's just been handed on. However, it wasn't until about 2013 that I got really serious with my work, and I went back to school, and that's when I became certified.
Gotcha. Can you just share with the public a little more what motivated you to go into the naturopathic field? Because that's not an obvious thing that people find.
Right. Well, so growing up, I guess we were always in the naturopathic field, and so I never knew the difference, right? My mom didn't take us to the doctor unless you broke a bone. Pretty typical for an 80s kid, right? However, like my grandmother used to make our medicine, and my mom used to make medicine and for the farmers around the area. And so I was just brought up, like we always grew our own food, we always made our own medicine, all of that. However, when I got older, I went to college. And when I went to college, I went for interpreting and I specialized in medicine. And at that point, I thought that like what I was taught was just wasn't real medicine, right? So I kind of put it on the back burner for a while. Like I didn't
College
really,
brainwashed you, right? College brainwashed you.
absolutely it did. Absolutely 100%. And I was zoned into my field. Like we had 2 years to do a 4-year degree. I was trying to become a sign language interpreter, you know? And so like it was a lot of study. It was intense. I already had 2 kids at home and I was a single mom. So there was a lot of stress. And so um I just kind of put it on the back burner. And then I had my third child about 10 years later. I think 10 years, about 7 years later. And when I had her, she actually ended up vaccine injured. And when that happened, it was another naturopath that I went to that helped me recover my child. And that's when I got really serious. And that's when I realized that all the stuff my mom had been telling me was true. And so I kind of like, I really just looked up anywhere I could go to college to become a naturopath. I wanted to be a doctor, but I was already 36, 37 years old and I was afraid. At that time, there was only a couple naturopathic colleges that were accredited that I could get loans for, right? Like a real medical school. And I couldn't do that. I was already involved. I had my kids, my family, my work. And so what I did was I fast tracked my education. So remember, I was brought up in all this. I knew how to make medicine. I knew how to take care of my kids. I breastfed all my kids. I did everything what I thought was right. We were organic. Um, but I didn't know why I did the things I did,
Mm.
right? And so I was still teetering on the doctor says, like my daughter would get sick. I bring her in and they say, oh, an antibiotic. Well, my first two never had an antibiotic. Why is she having all these antibiotics, right? And so
And I'm
um,
curious, why did the first two not have antibiotics?
I just didn't raise them with anything like that. The oldest was actually raised on the farm with my mom and my grandma and me. And so like I just did what my mom said to do. I didn't know I was young. I was a really young mom. And so I did what
Gotcha.
she did. So it wasn't until I went to college that my mind changed about medicine, you see? And so this time I was financially capable. I had a great husband. He had a great, great career. It should have been the easiest and the most pleasant experience as a mom. However, it quickly turned into a nightmare. My daughter was vaccine injured. Um, there was a lot of stress with that. And, the long story short, someone helped me recover my child. My child is fine now. And I threw away everything I was doing to fast track my education so that I could learn how to prevent this in the future. Like what really happened? Like, I really wanted to know what caused my daughter to get hurt. And so I went back to school, and through going through school, people were bringing me their kids, My kid has eczema, my kid has psoriasis, my kid's having seizures. Can you help me? And so then I started kind of under the table helping other kids, just like my mom helped everybody. That's what you do, right?
Mhm.
And I learned about homeopathic medicine, and homeopathic was kind of a game changer for me. And so once I learned about homeopathic medicine, it kind of opened up a doorway with toxicity with kids. And so I became very successful with treating kids, helping families. And then it wasn't very long. I think it was a year and a half. I finished my education, became a certified naturopathic practitioner, and went and got a bioscan. I went to school for bioscan. And when I got my bioscan, I opened my practice. And that's when I started seeing other families, like professionally.
That's an amazing story. I've heard similar stories where moms wake up because their kids are injured, but and sometimes the kids are pretty much permanently damaged, disabled, really, and the parents really truly wake up and they maybe even become activists, but they don't necessarily know what the solutions are.
Mm-hmm.
They understand, yes, there's holistic stuff, but they're not in a position necessarily to become a naturopath. You clearly have a talent and a gift for this naturopathic healing, uh, toolbox. Let's just put it that
Right.
way, and to offer it as a service to others. That's very unique, and it's awesome. And I hope you keep practicing because my clients certainly benefit a lot. For the audience members who don't know, I've been working with Shiloh for has it been 2 3 years? It's been a few years, right?
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
And Shiloh does these assessments for my clients, and they're always just shocked, like, wow, I had no idea that one, you could get that information at all. Two, you can get it from saliva, just something basic.
Mm-hmm.
Three, how accessible it is. And
Right.
four, why don't the doctors do it if it's so useful? And I'm like, oh, yeah, great questions. Well, because if you can pick your own herb, go into the forest, pick your own herbs, you don't need to pay many thousands of dollars for medications, right? If you have your own garden, you grow and you know how to grow your own stuff, you're set for life if you understand all this. And well, then
Right.
they're out of a job and they will never put themselves out of a job. And whereas we do the opposite in a way, when we empower our clients, we want ourselves out of a job. Like I can do other stuff, you know.
Right. Right. I really think that stuff like you and I do, it's really caused from a mental imbalance. I call it an insatiable need to help. We're
Yeah.
always out to help. Like it's something that was lost in us. So now we're trying to help others, right? So that they don't feel that same angst or pain. And lucky, I just had the background.
Mhm.
So it wasn't anything unique about me. I just had that background. I just forgot about my background for a while, right?
Very interesting. Very
I
interesting.
still I still work mainstream medicine. I still work I still interpret like for the emergency room and for doctor's appointments and things like that, but I'm a little more picky and choosy about what I do interpret when I can be. And
I
and so
think I think though, in a way, that gives you more information to work with,
it does.
because you need to know what is going on the other side of the field. You need to
Hmm.
know what anything that I do. I need broad, large amounts of information to work with to solve problems. If you truly solve problems, you need to be able to do research into many different areas and look at everything from many different angles. So you have to know what is going on in the conventional field to understand what people are dealing with,
Right.
because not only are they dealing with whatever problem they're dealing with, they're also dealing with that field that is
Right.
offering them something. You have to know what they are who they're talking to and what they're being told and what they are implementing if they are using the conventional methods, because those come with risks and side effects too. And you got to, and then as a practitioner, I'm sure you then encounter, well, then not only am I solving your problem, I'm also solving the secondary problems and tertiary problems that are a result of the solution that
Right.
the medical field offered to you. Like as an example, I have a client who was recovering from cancer, and he went into surgery due to a colon rupture, and they cut out his gallbladder, they cut out one of his kidneys because those might be problematic, not
Correct.
because they could prove that they are, but they could be Yeah, and so therefore he lost major organs. Like, that's terrible because you need those organs to produce energy. You're never going to be the same without those organs. And that's what a lot of people don't realize when they go to the conventional route, that once you cut, poison, burn, once you do surgery, you're never the same. Professional athletes say that. Just read biographies, get interested in people, and actually learn about their stories. And you'll see that people who went the conventional route, who depended on their body for their income, for their body to work right, then we're out of that income. Why? Because the body didn't work the same way anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
a professional boxer, I'm thinking of, he had to do surgery on his arms. That's it. He could never professionally box again. He became a coach. He's a really good coach, but he can't professionally box ever again. That's it,
Mhm.
because of the surgery. And I've heard similar things like that. Not to say all stories are like that. Sometimes the surgery is more topical, and the person then can return to sport. But like in the case of my client, he can never get, unless he gets a transplant, which he will never do.
Mhm.
For First of all, it's too expensive, but two, insurance would never approve it. He has, I guess, Medicare. But two, he's Christian. That's against his religion to put foreign things into your body. He would never take on someone else's gallbladder and kidney.
Mhm.
He would never do that. So he's now stuck like this without major organs, you know?
Right. Right. And if people knew, like if people knew, not just about prevention, prevention is huge, right? But when people get sick, if they kind of knew what type of things to do in order to like support the body, most of these things wouldn't happen. They wouldn't get to the degree where they are. And that's the big thing. Like a symptom, whether it's high blood pressure or it's um diabetes, like, sugar cravings, things like that. Those type of things are warnings. So our bodies are telling us, hey, something's going on. We need to pay attention, right? And if we paid attention and people told us, like if we were taught that, what to do beforehand or how to support the body through it, we wouldn't be getting to these points of cancers and diabetic insulin, like especially type 2 diabetes. It's the biggest fraud in history. No, it doesn't mean that we don't have it. We're seeing tons of type 2 diabetes. However, our food industry, which, I'm really thankful there's people coming that are really speaking out about the food industry now, big food, big ag, things like that, big pharma. But the food industry's, pushing, they're causing, but our lack of knowledge is allowing us to follow that, right? I think if people were taught better, they would know better. And it doesn't mean that you can never have a burger. It doesn't mean that you can never drive through and grab fries for your kids, but what it means is when the lights go on, you need to know what to do. Same with a cold or a flu. How many people died needlessly of our last pandemic, right? If people knew what to do, none of that would happen. Instead, we stayed home, isolated, and we waited. We waited until we couldn't breathe anymore. And so that's my big frustration. It's like, it's such a big frustration because when I tell people this, they say, well, my doctor, and I get your doctor. Totally cool. But if you're sick and you've been going to your doctor for the last 17 years and you've done nothing but get sicker, it's time to take a different approach, right? And that's, I guess, I don't know. That's my big tangent.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And so I recall seeing a lot of ads from the late 1800s and early 1900s where doctors were recommending sugar, a refined white sugar,
Mhm,
cocaine, and
mhm.
alcohol to women.
And tobacco.
Yeah, and to smoking. That's right, smoking tobacco
Mhm,
to women and children. And you
mhm.
see these ads of like what looks like a 2 or 3 year old with a cigarette. And so clearly they were wrong. We now know they were really wrong. They were convincing thin, healthy women that they were fat and telling them that sugar will cure you. Well, now we have, like an
Yeah,
average. Yeah, we have,
right.
yeah. So as a result, we have an epidemic of obesity. So what were they thinking? Who knows? But my sense is they were probably already then creating a conveyor belt of dependent individuals who are going to be dependent on pharmaceuticals.
Right. And I really think that's not, you know, I don't mean to defend a doctor or anything like that, but I know, like, when I went into this field, I went into naturopathic medicine, of course, but I went in to help people. And I honestly believe with all my heart that other people that are going to be a doctor, they're going in there to help people. But I think they're just like when I went to college for something totally so different, but I was just immediately brainwashed. I was just consumed with busy work and studying and analyzing language and all of these things. That's what happens on a level when you go to medical school. It's intense and you don't have time to think. And you just have to cram all this information in as soon as possible. And then you're hurried off into some internship, and you better impress the people you're around, right? Don't question what you're doing, just do it good. And so I really think that it's really so far high up, and I don't know how to break that cycle, but I know that if we can start small, like you're doing now, educating your clients, educating your community, educating moms, for crying out loud. Moms don't even know how to treat a cold or a fever, you know? They don't know what to do. They're just dumping bubblegum flavored Tylenol down their kid because that's what it says on the bottle. And if they knew that they were actually harming their child and making it harder for them, I don't think they would do it. Moms don't do it. They're not hurting their kids. They just don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people really don't know. And what shocks me is that people know more about how a car works or how their phone works than how their body works.
Right.
And it's like, this is it. You only get one. You can replace your phone. You only get one body. If you mess it up, I mean, you're really effed. But why is it that most people don't take the time to understand how the body really works, how to properly take care of it? I mean, it's kind of that's why the spiritual masters say we're in the dark ages. We're supposedly coming out of the dark ages, but I still see dark ages all around,
Right.
personally.
I do. I think it's going to get worse, but I do have a feeling it's going to get better soon. I think we haven't hit the worst of it, but once that hits, I think something good is coming, really good.
What do you think is the worst thing that will happen?
I do think that the pharmaceutical companies are going to be very, well, not just the pharmaceutical companies, not to get really political here, but like the WEF, the WHO, these big agencies that are set up to protect us. I think that they're conglomerating right now, and they're really trying to figure out how to force people into this box, right? And they want people to comply. And I did see on like their agenda, that agenda, it's now 2030 or something. And you can call it conspiracy theory, but Klaus Schwab is kind of the head of that, and he's the one promoting it. And you know, it's vaccines, mandatory vaccines for those of all ages. And if you choose to get a vaccine and you're an adult, I think that should be your right. You should be able to choose that. But if you choose not to put something like that into your body for any reason, it doesn't matter what your reason. If you choose that you don't want that procedure or that biologic injected into your body, you should be able to refuse. And so I think what's coming now, this is just my intuition, my gut telling me that they are going to come up with something so ridiculously crazy, and they're going to do another whole lockdown, and they're really going to beat down on the people like you and people like me that are speaking truth and trying to help others. And not just us, but I mean, there's so many people out there trying to help people. And they are going to try and force, um, they're just going to try and shut down your own right to say no. I really feel like that's coming. But on the plus, you know, a lot of people refused the COVID shots. They refused the regulations and the mandates that were pushed from that and survived it, right? We survived. And so if those people and the people that took the shots or that believe in choice now for whatever reason, if we could come together and agree that our rights as human beings are more important than any agency, then I think that we'll win. I think it's going to be amazing. There's no other where to go. You can't go to the doctor and get cured. What have they cured? Right? I've seen things cured. I didn't cure them, but the human body is amazing. I just help people to, remove those roadblocks and support their body, and I've seen them cured.
Absolutely. And there's a spiritual component. I'm not going to call it religious because I'm not proselytizing any religion. But the spiritual component is, well, there's a creator, there's the original design, there's God, and there is such a thing as faith healing. And people might say, well, then why doesn't just God cure everybody of everything? I'm like, that's a great question. But people have choices and consequences. And that's kind of the spiritual school, you could say, where you get to learn from your choices and consequences. If everything was always perfect, there would be no learning and no choices and consequences, no choices to make, and therefore no consequences to learn from. That kind of defeats the point of being here. The reason people are here is to have experiences where you have choices, and therefore you get to experience consequences. So you and I know that a lot of the things that people go through are a result of their own choices, poor choices.
Right.
Well, then that's why they then get sick. That is a consequence of the choices you made. You get to learn from that, even though it sounds, oh, but that's cruel. But no, but that's where you learn. So if you eat Twinkies every single day, you're going to get fat, right? You get to learn that. You hopefully you learn that as a child, where you start, or I feel horrible, I'm vomiting, I'm sick.
Right.
Or I'm eating vegetables and now I have brain power to do all these fun things I want to do. So people should have learned that when they were young. And if you didn't learn that when you were younger, you eventually have to learn it as an adult. And if and that's why, some people say, but there's no such thing as reincarnation. There's only one life, maybe. But some say, no, if you don't learn in this lifetime, you get to come back and learn it in a different life. That both of those could be true for different people. Somebody maybe is coming back, somebody isn't. But still, the fact remains that
you earned it either way, right?
Yeah,
you
right.
earned it.
That there's choices and consequences, and those choices are yours. That's not nobody can come and make those choices for you, or take those actions for you. You learn and grow and become an individual through those unique choices that you make. That's our unique human experience. So why would God come and take that away from you if God gave you these opportunities to learn, right? But at the same time, if there is a provision where if someone wanted the healing and they humbled themselves and asked through prayer or meditation, they could receive a healing.
Why not? Right.
Yeah, that exists too, through different processes, maybe, but that too is part of earning, because if you sort of have what some religions call penance, right? You repent of, oh, you know what, I made a mistake. That action, that choice and that action, that wasn't right. And you correct it through having different thoughts and taking different actions.
Right.
Through that corrective behavior, you can, in a way, facilitate a healing. Yeah, it comes from God, but you facilitated it by making different choices. Right?
Right.
So, yeah. And that's how we mature. That's how we become adults. We take full responsibility for our world and our choices and actions. And it's, children just emote and expect things to just happen to them to be taken care of. But adults realize we make our own path in the world. And like a parent, you would want your children to be competent. You would want them to eventually grow up to make mature, independent, healthy choices. That's why you wouldn't jump in every time they're making a mistake. Tell them, don't do it like that, do it like this. Then they'd never learn anything. Right? You in a way, you let them make little mistakes, not so bad, like you'd never let them get hit by a car, but little mistakes that allow them learning, right? That's why they go to school, right? You get to make all these mistakes and learn from them. Although school nowadays like punishes you for mistakes, which is not pedagogical. Kids have to learn mistakes. Everyone has to learn mistakes to a degree to learn, right? That's the deal of coming here, part of being human. And that's why God doesn't jump in and fix everything as soon as, oh, this person is sick, let me immediately fix them. And interestingly, my client also pointed that out when he lost his kidney and he got put on dialysis. And he was going to the clinic and all these people on dialysis, and his inner guidance, like his guardian angels, spiritual guides were like, look at all these people. You see, they're suffering. They were all really suffering. Like dialysis is horrible. For people don't know, that's all you do. You have no life at that point. You in the morning you wake up, you feel horrible. You go into dialysis, you sit there for several hours, you come home, you feel like the life was sucked out of you. You can't work. You're basically on disability. And the next day you do the same thing. That's all you do. That becomes your life. Dialysis becomes your life. You're married to that machine. It's truly a nightmare. It's truly hellish. And so he was in there, and his guidance were like, all of these people are in here because of their own choices. They're doing it to themselves. They could walk out of this horrible loop, this groundhog, but they're in a way choosing to stay because they think that's all there is for them.
Right.
And but he had me, thankfully, and I helped him to heal his kidney. It went from 30% to 80, and he was able to get off dialysis.
Fantastic.
And I did shamanic healing for that. So for people who don't know what shamanic healing is a type of energy medicine that does work remotely. And I knew it could do that because I've seen that before in other clients and myself, but he was really surprised. It's like all those people, I could have done that for all those people, but they don't know me. All they have to do is reach out to me. I would help them, but they don't reach out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where prayer comes in. If you don't reach out and if you don't ask for help, then the higher beings can't help you and they can't send you help. You have to ask. You have to humbly ask, and you have to realize what you did wrong. You have to realize your mistake. You don't necessarily have to announce it to everybody, but you have to realize in your heart what you did wrong. Like,
but people are so afraid. They're so afraid it's not even about taking it is about taking the leap. Changing your lifestyle is really scary, right? It's really scary, especially when you have a family, because your family's like that crab effect. So they're going to want to go out to eat, or they're going to want different things, right? They're going to want the bag of chips in the house where you might not be able to have that, right? And then on top of that, there's this whole monopoly called insurance. And it's got people so glued in. Well, my insurance, if I go to the doctor, my insurance pays for that. My insurance pays for that. Meanwhile, they're paying crazy co-pays, or someone else is paying their co-pays, right? And insurance really is such a ball and chain for people. And like, I'm a naturopathic practitioner. I can't take insurance, nor do I want in that monopoly. I don't want an insurance company telling me how many patients I can see, how many minutes I can be with them, what I need to tell them, what I can't. You know, I'm sure you're in the same boat, but that's why doctors refer to me. Like doctors, good doctors, like I've had several now that refer me clients that I've never met. And when I finally got to ask the question, like, why are you referring to me? How do I know you? It's always, well, I saw in my patient's blood work that they were improving. And I asked them where they were going, and they told me. And so once I realized stuff was working, I just looked into it a little deeper, and it's out of my scope of practice. That's what I always hear. It's out of my scope of practice. It's out of your scope of practice to tell a woman that she might benefit from wild yam or dong quai or something that's harmless. It's food, right? It's food. That's out of your scope of practice. They can't do that. They have to recommend hormone replacement therapy or nothing. And I just don't understand it. And it's such a ball and chain for people. But if people realized about this monopoly called insurance and what it really is doing and how it's forcing and actually dictating what care they get, I think that they would be a little more cautious. I think they would be more open to spending that $100 to see a practitioner, right? Or $100 and something to get a scan so that they can look at the scan. The scan's great. It shows you all your information. You use lifestyle scans all the time. It shows you where in your life are you lacking. It shows you what you can do to improve it. It shows you your structural, your mental. It shows you your emotional. It shows you your organ and systematic health, your skin health. Like, it's kind of if people really looked at it, it's kind of a do-it-yourself plan. It's all there in black and white. And you do that, and you follow the guidelines. You don't even have to follow all of them. Just follow the top 3. And then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 months, get another scan. and you can see your improvement, and you can change it as you improve. I mean, really, I just don't think why, I don't understand why doctors are not required to utilize naturopathic practitioners. I don't understand why they're not required to do that. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I mean, I got an answer to that, and some people will love it and some people will hate it, but that's the nature of the truth. It's polarizing. Now, I'm a spiritual person. Like I said, I don't preach any religion, but you know, in the good book, it says we're fighting not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and parties in high places. There was a takeover, there was a hijacking. The Bible talks about a hijacking of this world, the matrix, by dark forces, the archons. And nowhere does it say that they left yet.
Right.
So there is a spiritual battle, and there are good beings and very destructive beings within all systems and within all religions too. And so people have to be very discerning and very careful. Yes, there are genuinely good souls who really want to help people within the medical field. And there are also charlatans, you know, selling fake supplements. You know what I mean? There's all of that is
Correct.
out there. All of that is out there, and everything in between. People in the gray area who haven't decided yet what side they're on. You know, and we this is why choice is so important. You get to decide: are you going to be on the light side or are you going to be on the dark side? Um, just kind of as a little as a side note, if people, you know, if someone is like, well, how do I know who is on the light or on the dark? How do I know if I'm on the light or on the dark? Essentially, there is a book. It's not how should I put it? It's not the um, necessarily the one single barometer or go to, but it's one interesting point of reference for this kind of information, and that's the Law of One series. It's a channeling from Ra. They talk about these light and dark side of things, and the light is defined as service to others, and the dark is defined as service to self. And we're here to learn from both. And essentially, in the school, you get to eventually graduate. If you want to graduate on the light side, you have to be at least 51% service to others. So you don't have to be 100%. That's very hard. Being service to others 100%. In this world, you turn to a doormat. You don't survive very long. If you ever tried, I mean, you get taken advantage of right, left, and center. You're not going to be here. But at least 51. So let's say balance. Basically, balance. Yes, there is some service to self. It's okay. You can graduate with that. But as much as possible, service to others. Some people achieve 70, 80% service to others. That's very high in this matrix. That's very hard to do. They would be seen as saints. You know, they're always out there helping everybody. But yeah, they also have to eat, you know, and they also have to like take care of their body. You have to have some service to self. It doesn't make you evil. But what happens is if you want to graduate as a service to self, you have to be extreme. It has to be almost 100% service to self. That means you do absolutely anything: backstab, cheat, steal, lie, kill, do anything to get ahead. You have to be very, very dark to graduate on the dark side. It's very hard to do too. Not my path, not mine. I would not want that path, but some people are on that path. I'm sure you've met them, right? I have met some people like that where you could just tell psychopathy is through the roof. They will absolutely not bat an eyelash to get for themselves whatever they got to get. Me, number one, always. They really just use people, they use systems. They you know, like there's a profile for that kind of person. They tend to be very charismatic. They tend to kind of like Ted Bundy, right? They tend to be very attractive to the opposite sex. They tend to be handsome. They're not ugly losers. Like, I don't want to say it like that, but they're not ugly losers in a mom's basement. Let's put it that way.
Right.
They tend to be able to really rise through the ranks into very high places, into positions of power. And that's what they want most of all: power. And who do they prey on? Gullible individuals. People who don't understand that there's this dynamic of dark and light, that there is this kind of a storyline, a plot to what we're doing here, to our curriculum here, is that we have to learn from both. from light and dark. And every time you encounter a very dark person, you have a choice. Are you going to become like that? Or are you going to become more light? But you can't stay the same. If you stay the same, the higher beings don't like that. You're not progressing. So if someone is stuck and not progressing, they will be sent what's called a dark greeting. They will encounter a very dark person, and where they will be jolted out of their sleep and will have to make a decision. And why do people fall asleep? Oh, because it's a very difficult place. If someone is drinking too much, doing too many drugs, entertaining themselves to death, just not being creative, not being productive, they will be sent somebody who is going to challenge the F out of them. And it's like you're going to do or you're going to die. You are either going to become more enlightened, you're going to become stronger, you're going to become better, you're going to become lighter, and therefore offer more, become more service to others, or you're going to become like this dark person, or this dark person is just going to destroy you.
Right.
There is no other way. You're going to be faced with that, and people don't like that. No one obviously likes that, but in a way that's unavoidable, because ultimately that's the only way to grow.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have these greetings. I think that's what the law of one calls them, negative greetings. Or and to help you, you'll be sent positive greetings. You'll be sent guides, angels, helpers, allies, mentors, people who are going to give you the right information, the right tools to win the battle.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to have to win the battle, and that's why the hero's journey is such a powerful story. And I don't know if you've studied the hero's journey, but there's stations you go through. Have you ever seen The Lord of the Rings?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, years ago, yeah, I
Long
did.
time ago.
Yeah.
So it follows the hero's journey pretty well. A lot of Hollywood movies do, but it came, I believe, from Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell, who wrote A Hero with a Thousand Faces. It's a classic book now. He was talking about how in all the mythologies and all the religions, there is that monomyth. And the monomyth is the hero's journey, where you have the protagonist going through a series of adventures, being tested, goes through trials and tribulations, and he has mentors that help him, and there are forces that he faces. And it's very important to remember that we all are called to be the hero of our journey, of our own journey. So when people say, oh, I don't really believe there's like a conspiracy, I don't really believe there's dark forces out there, everyone is good at heart. I'm like, bullshit. Not everybody's good at heart.
Right.
That is the gullibility that psychopaths use. Some
Mm-hmm.
people are not good at heart. They're absolute pure evil at heart. There's not a lot of them, but they exist, and they exist for a purpose. God allows it. That's what people are missing, God didn't make a mistake. Whoops, I create a psychopath. No, that's part of our journey to become a more enlightened person. We have to overcome that kind of person. We have to understand that is not something that we want to be. You have to understand the psychology of that kind of person. It's the reverse of enlightenment. It drags you down into hellish realms, and some people do end up in hellish realms for a while,
Mm-hmm.
either during their life. Have you ever seen like people who are severely addicted to drugs? They're in hell. uh,
Right.
or after you pass, you might be in one of these realms. You can exit when you yourself reach a point within your conscious psychic awareness that you no longer need this. You've made a decision that you're not going to be stuck in this anymore. You've decided, I'm not going to be like this. Or if you decide you do want this, you're going to have more of that.
Right.
And that's everyone's choice. It's free choice. You can decide that for yourself, but just beware of the consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense. It totally makes sense. It's not anything that I sit and think about, but when you put it out there, it's like, yes, we all go through this. All of us do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have those choices to make. And well, back to Dr. Flynn, you earned it, right? You earned your
Right.
life, right? Or you earned a healthier life, you earned a healthier body or a sicker one, right?
That's right. That's right. So this
So
just
if we go through life and we're gullible and it's like, okay, well, take the shot, take the Tylenol, take this, and we're not doing due diligence to find out what is good for us or what's harming us as a body, right? If we're not willing to do that, if we're going through life gullible, I think you're going to go through a lot more trials.
absolutely. That means you're asleep. Some part of you, if you're gullible, that means you're asleep. And you want someone else to take care of things. You,
Mhm.
your soul. Well, that means you're not really growing. You're just, so, wind could blow on you and you just go in that direction. You don't have will. You're not the driver.
Mhm.
It means that you just kind of go with whatever. Well, inevitably, that means if a psychopath, powerful, strong, negative person comes into your life, they're going to start to control you. And there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it. And either you fight to get out or you're going to become a slave to that system.
Right. Or in terms of sickness, you're asleep at the wheel, and then all of a sudden, "Oh, I've never been sick a day in my life, and all of a sudden I have cancer." Your trial, right? It's time to wake up. So yeah,
Yes,
I guess it could be people, it could be circumstances, it could be medically related, it could be, I don't know.
it could be anything. Yeah, for a lot of people, it's a health crisis. A
Mm-hmm.
health crisis is what wakes them up out of their, if they fell asleep at the wheel, they will crash, and that crash is a serious health crisis. Sometimes they can come out of that, and sometimes they don't. But sometimes, even though they don't, the people around them become more enlightened because they see, they observe, they're a witness to a struggle, and it's almost like that person chose the only way I'm going to wake up my family or my tribe or my community is if I show them the worst case scenario. And then they're going to say, I don't want that to happen to me. And it wakes up a lot of people. It's almost like they sacrifice themselves. They take one for the team so that lots of people can wake up. And there's a lot of that goes on actually. So we
Mm-hmm.
get like at a deeper spiritual level, when we see worst case scenarios, it's sometimes because the person kind of sacrificed themselves for others. Is in a way, if you think about it, that too is a path of
Kind of
enlightenment.
heroic, right?
Yeah, even though it may not seem that way, but it could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another thing that's really important that I've certainly dealt with, and I'm sure you have too, is I'm thinking of one of my clients in particular. When he was younger, when he was in his teens and 20s, he was in a band, so he did a lot of drugs, he did a lot of smoking, drinking, and then he had a spiritual awakening, and he stopped. He stopped doing all. He still made music because and that's good, but he stopped drinking like overnight. People were like, "What happens? You changed." He completely changed. He was in. I think he was in a church, and he had like a spiritual awakening in a church. It was kind of spontaneous. He wasn't. It's not that he was not all that Christian before, but he wasn't. He was just sort of into it. He was still
Mm-hmm.
doing all these bad things, right? Um, and then spontaneously had this awakening, and overnight he changed. However, he didn't do the detoxing. He wasn't really taking the supplementation. He wasn't. He was doing a lot of martial arts after that, but he didn't repair the damage he caused before. So
Mm-hmm.
then in his 40s is when he was hit with the cancer crisis. So even though he had made much better choices for over 20 years, that those choices that he made when he was a teenager, they still bit him on the ass
Oh yeah.
when he was mature enough to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that happens. Had he been hit with cancer in his 20s, I don't think he would have survived it. He wouldn't even know what to do. He was pretty clueless, like a lot of 20-year-olds are. But after 40, he was more mature. He trained in martial arts, so he had the fighter mindset. So he battled and he survived. Survived cancer, he survived chemo. But then when he met me, he wasn't in that battle anymore, but he was just plateaued. He was not improving. He was just drifting through life. He still needed to detox. He still needed to repair the damage from the past. Like you never
Mm-hmm.
actually get away with that. If you
You
cause
don't.
Yeah, if you cause damage to yourself or to someone else, you will be tasked to repair it. That's what people don't realize. Every action has a reaction. Every choice has a consequence. If you're not allowed to treat yourself badly, you're not allowed to treat yourself like a trash can, just shoving garbage into you. You're not allowed to abuse yourself or others. If you do that, there will be a reckoning. You will have to correct that at some point. And it's not going to come in the form of punishment, somebody beating you over the head with it's not punitive in that sense, but you'll be caused to have to self-reflect on what you did and correct it yourself. Take the
That makes
time.
sense.
Yeah, take the time out of your life and make that correction. In this
Right.
life or in another. Makes sense, right?
It does. It does make sense, and it's you eat healthy now, it's really expensive. But if you don't take care of yourself when you face illness, oh my gosh, now the cost is astronomical, right? It's not only the healthcare cost that comes along with it, but it's also the lifestyle cost that comes along with it. You talked about dialysis. Could you imagine? I'm ready to take control of my life now, but I'm hooked to a machine twice a day, right? Crazy. It's just crazy to me. And that is, you either pay for it now or you pay for it later kind of a deal.
Exactly. That's right. And the lifestyle costs are a lot higher than people realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see families that do well and they eat well and they feed their kids well and they teach their kids well and they seem to be so far advanced. And I see a lot. Like I think this next generation that's coming, and I don't mean the older ones, but I'm talking like 20 or under, maybe even 18 or under. I think they're really changing some of those bad habits that have been there for the last 20, 30, 40 years, even more, right? I think they're more structured. They're much more structured and they're more aware and just I don't want to say self-limiting, but just I noticed my daughter, for example, she's 14. She's aware of what she puts in her mouth. She's always aware, but she's also aware of what other people do in her grade. She goes to public school. And so, she's on a basketball team and she's on a volleyball team and she's doing all these things, but she's hyper aware of who to hang out with. And she pushes herself to be with people that are just as good or better. And I don't want to say good as in good and bad. I mean, solid minded, right? They want to better their lives, better their bodies, better their grades. Like they just seem to have it more together. And I'm noticing more and more kids at the school. I used to work at the school an awful lot. So I saw the trend drifting down. And I've been out of the school system now for, oh goodness, I know 20 years, maybe. Not quite, maybe 18 years. And it really took a shift at that point. It really got political. There's a lot of bad stuff happening in public education right now. But I see there's another shift coming, and it's a shift that's better. And so there is hope for this next generation coming. Big hope.
That's very interesting. I think I see that too. And now I'm kind of putting the pieces together. You said we're going to get this hit again. And I think that would be the attempt actually to get at the kids because we're old, right? Already, they don't really care about us that much. It's
Correct.
they want to get the kids,
Mhm.
and so the hit would really be at that. We would be secondary, tertiary, but I think it's not going to work. The reason I think it's not going to work is because the kids have more protection. They're coming in with more protection somehow.
There is a higher awareness with them.
Yeah.
I know it. I'm not a super spiritual person. I don't follow all of that, but I see I see a difference. Like my daughter and kids her age are not afraid to speak out. Not just be rude, but just speak out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a change there. There's from the good child, yep, I'll do whatever I need to do. Just tell me what to do. I don't want to be bad to why do you want me to do this?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I think there is a shift. And so it's there's something good coming. I know there's something. There has to be.
Yeah, because I think if you've hit rock bottom, you can only go up.
I
Well,
think
yeah.
what's that generational cycle, right? So you have the depression. Let's start at the Great Depression. We had people there that had a really tough life, tough life, right? And so they wanted their children to have a little bit better than them, right? And so they gave their kids a little bit better. So that generation got a little bit weaker, a little more spoiled, not spoiled by any means of what we know today, but just a little more than the poverty that they experienced during the Great Depression, right?
Mhm.
And then that generation had their children and they wanted to make sure that life wasn't so hard and work wasn't so hard on that generation. And so they got a little more weaker, right? And so as the masculinity of man, right? Same thing happened, right? And then they wanted their kids to have it a little better. So then now we're getting really weak, right? After the 80s kids, I think we got really, really weak. And 90s, terrible, terrible. And now there's all kinds of craziness happening where boys don't know if they're girls and girls are convinced they're boys. I mean, like this whole masculinity thing, it's almost gone, right?
And the femininity too.
And you're correct. And so now I'm seeing with this next generation, these kids, they're bringing it back.
Okay,
So
good.
they're going to be the hard asses, right? Excuse my language, but that's what they're going to be. They're going to be the hard asses.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be hard on themselves and everybody else around them. And
Mm-hmm.
so that generational cycle starts over again. And I really think that, like, I don't really know how to explain it, but you can see it. You can see it from, the world wars. And then you see like every so often, like the generations get weaker and weaker. Look at the fall of Rome. Same type of thing, right? They get it so good and so good. And then all of a sudden it's like everybody's spoiled and nobody knows how to do anything and it collapses. And then something stronger has to come to survive that, right? I don't know. It's not really my field. I don't study history that much. I just see pattern. I'm really good at seeing patterns, I think. That's what I
You
see.
know what you mean? I sometimes see patterns too. I feel like with me, it's more I connect the dots.
Mhm.
I things just sort of click for me when I see a lot of things. I can see how they're associated behind the scenes and what that means.
Mhm.
Figuring out what that means, like a researcher. Like I do a lot of research that I've always done, and I found that of all the people that I know, I probably do more research than others, and I end up finding the answer. So
Mhm.
even though sometimes it takes time, I end up finding the answer if I keep looking.
Right.
For some people, I don't know if they're not looking or what, but they find garbage. Like that's all.
Right.
Like why does that happen? But I want to
Uh,
ask you a few more questions
okay.
about what you do exactly, how what you do, how you do it. We talked about why, right? And that's a strong why. Um, but what kind of clients do you help, right? Because some people work with people who are like them, and some people work with people very different from them. So what
Mhm.
kind of clients do you help, and what kind of problems do you love to solve?
I see a variation of clients, but I do see that paradigm is slightly moving. So for a while, I was focused on vaccine injury and toxicity issues, right? That led into dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, that type of a deal, right? And then from there, we had an incident in our family where my husband actually had a perforated colon and he went into the hospital. And he's a big guy. If you can imagine Fred Flintstone, that's my husband. He's loud. You're never going to stop him from going to Culver's. You're never going to get him on the right track. He'll eat healthy at home. He's not against eating good food, but he's a construction worker. And so he's always on the road and it's always a quick drive through, no matter what. Well, he paid the penalty and he ended up in the emergency room for a perforated colon. And come to find out, not only was his colon perforated, but so was the small intestines, and there was a blockage. So he was in dire straits. This is total emergency care. And so they were trying to convince him to go into emergency surgery and have his colon removed, 3 feet of his colon, actually. And I remember being there in the emergency room. And before everything got started, they came in with this IV, and on the IV was a container about this big, along with fluids, but it was a separate container about this big. And they said, I said, what is that? And they said, oh, it's just Tylenol. And I said, well, he doesn't need that. And they said, what do you mean he doesn't need that? He needs that. He's got a fever. I said, it's 99 degrees. He doesn't have a fever. And they said, yes, he has a fever. Now, I didn't tell them I was a naturopath. I was quiet. I wanted the whole focus to be on Dwayne. I didn't want to tug and pull. I just wanted to be his wife. That's all I wanted to be. And so the lady stormed out of there and she went and got the doctor who was a PA, and she came in and she said, she bypassed me and went straight to him, and he was in excruciating pain. He was like almost incoherent. And she's like, Mr. Dwayne. And she's like, we have Tylenol for you. It will help you. Do you want the Tylenol? And he said, no, 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 not at this time. And so she looked at me and she got irate. and she went to grab the Tylenol off of there. And I said, listen, he needs his liver right now more than he needs that Tylenol. I was just trying to make friends. And she got furious. So she left. So she brings in this CAT scan later after, this is so many hours. Like everything's very surreal when you're in an emergency room situation, especially it was post-COVID, but it was still during the time where everybody had to have a mask. Only one person in the room with the person at one time. I was allowed 1 hour with him once he was admitted a day. That was it. Like it was very strict protocol. And so everything I did, I had to do within just a tiny short time frame, but we're still in the emergency room. And they tell me that like they take him down for a CAT scan, they bring him back and they say, okay, well, we got this CAT scan done and he's going to have emergency surgery. And I say, okay, well, I want to see the CAT scan. What do you want to see it for? I said, well, I want to see what's happening. I want to see what's going on. Well, you can't read it. I said, well, I can't. I want to see it. And so, I'm demanding blood work. I'm demanding the CAT scan. And they're like, they don't know what to think. Remember, they don't know who I am, except for I'm his wife. And I'm trying to get as much information so I can make the call, whether he's going for surgery or not, right? And so then another doctor came in because they didn't have enough beds in the hospital they needed to send him to for the surgery because we had a small hospital. And so another doctor came in, he's a surgeon, and he was going to come in to try and evaluate the situation. And he must have been some pot smoking hippie guy because you could smell it all over him when he came in. But you talked about those little angels that are sent to you. He was my saving grace. He didn't know why I was asking for the stuff I was asking for, but he gave it to me. And I was able to look at the scans, consult with him, and figure out that my husband didn't need surgery. What he needed was bowel rest. So we're going to keep everything from him and we're going to put him on an IV and we're going to let his colon heal itself. Right? So I convinced him to give me 3 days. So he's going to give me 3 days. So we get him in there. Well, the hospital he had to stay at, and they were so angry that he didn't have that surgery that they ignored him. They ignored him. So the only time they would come in is to give him a shot in his belly to keep him from developing blood clots and to switch out his IV back. Like they wanted nothing to do with him. It saved his life. He ended up there for 7 days. He came out. And after that, can you imagine what I did? I dove in and I researched everything I could about the digestive system. I already knew about the digestive system, but I didn't know to the degree that I had learned in the week that he was in the hospital, right? And so when he's in the hospital, I'm sneaking him aloe vera juice. I'm sneaking him magnesium. I'm sneaking bone broth. I'm bringing all this stuff in because when it was time for him to eat, they brought him macaroni and cheese and a hamburger. Like insanity, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so then I started specializing in digestive care. And my husband is he's fine. He's never had surgery. He's fine. Does he relapse? He does. But we know what to do when he relapses. He's never going to change. He's Fred Flintstone. So I went from there. And then so I started seeing a lot of clients with digestive health. And I really like that. I think that would be my favorite overall because everything begins there. I think that's why everything just begins there. If that ain't healthy, there's nothing else that can be done, right? And so, but during all this time, I ended up getting a series of clients from one of my doctors that was an oncologist, and he was sending me clients that were terminal. So these are the clients that they can't do anything else for. And so I did dabble into cancer quite extensively, and we're talking all kinds of cancers, right? Breast cancer, bone cancer, you name it. And it's all cancer. It's all abnormal cells. So you don't have to get crazy into the like the science of it or the labeling of it. It's all cancer. It's just an abnormal cell. So I did a lot of that. But I like to keep, I do still see clients, but I guess those would be my more limited clients. I've had so many success stories with them. But Ariel, if you could imagine someone at that stage of illness in their life to where the doctors send them home, it is a 24-hour job.
Absolutely.
It's a 24-hour job. So it takes a lot of brain work. And so I really like to keep one, maybe two clients maximum. But other things that I enjoy treating besides digestive systems would be Lyme. I love homeopathics, and I love what they can do for Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr virus, Lyme disease. We have Rife machines as well. So sometimes we support people with a Rife generator, and we'll support them. So while they're going through their treatment at home, and they're changing their diet, and they're taking their drops or they're taking their supplements, we support them through a Rife generator. It works remotely. So I'm able to support you anywhere in the world and just give you that extra frequency. Everything's a frequency, everything's energy, right? So I can support that cell and those changes that you're making. So I can do that. I really like working with Rife.
So I actually trained a little bit in homeopathics, but I never trained in Rife. So correct me if I'm wrong, if I understand how this works. Both of them are energy medicine. Homeopathics also is energy medicine, because it's not like when you're taking a supplement, it's an herb or it's a mineral. There's a thing there that's working on you. But with the homeopathic, you have the energy of something.
Correct.
And so when you are taking a so let's say there is the virus, right? Some kind of virus. You're taking a homeopathic that is, as I understand, it's helping your immune system to get rid of the virus.
It actually, yeah, helps that cell. So it shifts the frequency of the cell. So no matter whether it's a liver cell or an immune cell or a bone cell, it shifts that frequency. It's able to support that shift. But it's huge. It's huge medicine.
Interesting. I think for like a regular average person, well, that sounds like magic. Like
It
that's
does.
yeah.
But like if for the regular average person who goes and gets a vaccine, that's where the vaccine principle came from, was homeopathy.
100%. See, I know that because I studied it. But if you say that to an average person, over their head, they don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. So all we're doing, so for example, just something simple here, but for example, like let's say someone's having a lot of how do I do it? Okay, let's say somebody's sick, they have the flu, okay, or a cold. Then we might give them influenzium, which is just the energetic frequency of the flu. Because all I'm going to do is I'm going to stimulate a certain part of their immune system so that it knows what it's doing, so that it can help to strengthen, to eradicate whatever's going on, right? Rust tox is poison ivy. So if someone gets poison ivy or even joint pain, we might give them rust tox, for example, because like cures like. It's just, all it's doing is prepping the body to deal with whatever it is coming at it. But what's beautiful about homeopathy is it can also be used in preventative care, right? So, for example, that's what they're using with vaccines. In homeopathy, we use what's called homeoprophylaxis. So we're giving little doses of measles at one time, or little doses of diphtheria at one time, right? And so we're letting them come through, and it's only one at a time. So we're making them symptomatic. They might get a little sniffles, something like that. And then whenever they come in contact with it, then their body's prepared to fight it. There's an immune cell, or there's a memory cell made of that measles or that diphtheria or whatever the case may be, tetanus maybe, right? But it does so without the use of aluminum, thimerosal, adjuvants, actual viruses or bacterias. And it does so the natural way through the mucous membranes, rather than being injected directly into the bloodstream.
See, that's what, if I recall correctly, that is why vaccines don't work as we're told, because usually if we're, so what the vaccines are supposed to do is sort of give you a taste of a problem so you have a chance to solve it. But usually the problem comes through the nose, mouth, or skin. It's not usually injected in the way it is. So by it being injected, it bypasses that blood-brain barrier. Therefore, we're not actually able to solve that problem. It's almost
Right.
like what's coming in is camouflaged in some way, and the body doesn't recognize it as what it is, if
Correct.
I understand it correctly. And then when you take the homeopathic version of that same of that energy, it's almost like it gives the cell essential information. This is what you're actually dealing with. And the cell goes, oh, yes, I know exactly what that is. I know how to fight that.
Correct. And the
Right?
fact is that most likely you're still going to encounter that childhood illness, but your body's going to be much, much more capable of receiving. Same with the flu or a cold, like your body's just going to be much more capable of receiving. So homeopathy is very symptomatic based. So the symptom that you feel is what the remedy that you would take for. The Bioscan, I have a Bioscan machine, I have a Zyto machine. So you've worked with both of those. And both of those are actually based on homeopathic principles as well. So we shift the frequency of a cell by the use of those. And we also test your cell with those machines. So we're able to see exactly what's going on in your body. I call it a cross between an EKG and a lie detector. It really tells us the full story.
By the way, I definitely felt different. So I had 30 days was about a month of Rife, and where you're doing it every day. I definitely felt different. The best way I can describe it is I felt superhuman because I train 2 hours a day. I felt, and I get tired doing that naturally. But when you were sending me the right frequencies, I was just, I don't know, less tired. For me, it manifests as my brain power just goes down. When I'm tired, it's almost not necessarily physical. I feel like physically I could probably do more. I've sometimes trained 3, 4, 5 hours crazy. It's my brain power that goes low. It just shuts off. Like no information can come in. I'm worried. I don't even want to drive because I'm concerned I'm gonna miss exits, get into an accident. Like it's more my brain power. But when you were sending me right, I felt like I can handle anything. It doesn't matter what the information. I felt like I could study more, read more, see more clients, train more, was less tired. Initially, I think I didn't sleep as well because I had so much more brain power. But then once I understood what it was, I felt like I managed it, and I was actually sleeping better. So for me, it's not like drinking coffee, hype energy, but it was energy. It was like a more life energy. That's the best way I can describe it. So I definitely felt different, and I'm generally healthy. I can only imagine what it's like for a person who is dealing with some kind of serious illness or disease. They will probably have even more of an effect because you can actually destroy. As I understand it, right frequency goes in, you can actually program it. There's all these thousands of frequencies, right? Like each disease, health has a frequency and disease has a frequency. And whether it's bacteria or virus or whatever that is, has a very specific tone and frequency to it, like music. And you can target that virus with the right frequency, and you essentially shatter that virus or
Correct.
bacteria,
It's
right?
great for parasites. It's absolutely fantastic for any candida, parasites, stuff like that, because most people they can't handle a good detox. So I'm able to adjust that machine to just slowly start whittling away so they don't get the strong detox. It's just, I don't know. We have so
Very
many different machines, and I love machines. So I'm kind of a machine connoisseur, you know?
Very, very interesting. Well, AI can be used for a good purpose. We just have to learn how to.
Right.
Collectively, we still don't know how to. We're using our AI in not in the greatest possible way, but I'm glad we have it. I'm not against AI. We just have to control it. We can't let AI control us. That was
Right.
right. Um, so you mentioned how a lot of people can't handle a strong detox. That may be why a lot of people don't heal. There are some people, they just keep doing protocols, supplements, this and this diet, this and this, and they can't ever seem to heal. And do you think that that's why? Because they're not really detox, or why do you think some people don't seem to be able to heal?
Well, adding supplements on on unhealthy bodies, your body can't handle it. So let's just focus on liver. Liver is the most important detoxification system we have in the body, right? That's our number one detoxification system. And that liver gets clogged and even if you ate good, right? Let's say you ate pretty, you don't eat the standard American diet. You eat more of a Mediterranean style, or you eat really healthy. You're aware of organic and grass-fed versus conventional. Let's say all those things are in place. We are still bombarded with so many toxins and pollutants on a day-to-day basis. And regardless of what you believe, but you can look up in the sky and you can see lines going across the sky that we've never seen before, right? They call them chemtrails. We can, our water is so unhealthy, which is why we moved here. I don't know if you noticed, I got a little fly moving around here. I'm in the middle of canning season. So we are so remote now that, like, I grow all of my own food. We have, we have a well, we have things, and we're trying to move our family very purposely away from all of those toxins. But I can tell you, I can still look up in the sky and I can see chemtrails and I can see things, and I'm always wondering, what are they spraying now? Right?
Yeah. Oh, believe me.
So,
Yeah, I know.
we live a really clean life, right? I
Mhm.
still need to detox, you know?
That's
And
right.
my husband, oh boy, he really needs to detox, but I couldn't detox him. I would be afraid to detox him too quickly at all, because he's just a big guy and there's no changing him. Because
Well,
sometimes that's part of love, right? Sometimes you just have to accept and move on. If he's not willing to change it, well, he's not willing to change it. Like, I
yeah,
don't know what to
yeah.
say.
Well, if he's willing to eat what you give him, just give him little, like small amounts of stuff that will detox him.
Right.
Small
Yes,
amount.
we do. We use a lot of herbs and stuff, we do. And he is on milk thistle, but I just don't know if there's any amount of detoxing that he could take. But whatever. So detoxing, when we are detoxing, especially if there's parasites or candida, what happens is all of those things start to die off. And when they die off, they kind of pollute the bloodstream, right? So it makes us feel really sick. And if our liver is not high functioning, if our liver is not working at its best, it can get clogged up, right? Another problem is colon, right? So we have special enzymes in our colon that actually pull the toxins. Like, so the liver, is like that big garbage disposal. So it takes all these toxins out of the bloodstream, fat, excess hormones. There's all these things that the liver pulls in. And then when it grinds them up and methylates them, right? Grinds them all up, and then it dumps it into the colon. And the colon's job is to flush those toxins out. Well, you hear of women with endometriosis, PCOS, things like that. What's happening with those women, specifically endometriosis and a lot of other detox issues? But what's happening is that enzyme that's supposed to be in that colon, for whatever reason, is not able to be there. It's not there doing its job. So when those toxins get ground up and they get dumped into the colon absorbs about a gallon of water every 12 hours, right? It absorbs it back into the bloodstream. Okay. When those toxins are dumped into the colon and they're left there because they can't get out, then they are reabsorbed into our bloodstream. And then what that makes for is basically an atomic toxic nightmare. All those toxins that were whole are now much more potent, and they're dumped back into the bloodstream, which is why people feel so lousy. So if the colon's working and the liver's working, you shouldn't have any trouble detoxing. You might feel a little hungover at times or a little under the weather, but it should be an easy process. But for people who aren't ready and they say, oh, I see a great liver detox, or oh, I see some supplements I want to try, and they start taking them, they can really cause some havoc. It won't kill you, but you're definitely not going to feel good. You're just going to feel like, oh, that didn't work. I got sick. It didn't work.
It's really interesting. When I first started this journey, my health, my healing journey years ago, my own healing journey over 20 years ago. I was just, yeah, I heard all that about detox. I'm like, I don't care. I want it all out. I just give me everything. Whatever's gonna detox me, give it to me. And I went through massive roller coasters. And I didn't realize how bad it can be. And I
Uh-huh.
survived it all. And I'm like, wow, I did all that. I actually did all that by myself.
Oh, wow. Yeah, especially heavy metal detoxing. There's a lot of heavy metals. And
That's what I had.
can,
I had heavy
those are
metal
probably
poisoning.
the heavy metals. Yeah. Those are probably the two worst that we see. And
Yeah, what I didn't realize is at some point when I was detoxing, I did IV chelation.
oh boy.
I did a lot of it, and I think I did more than I needed because I wanted to be thorough. And I'm glad I did because actually it made my spiritual and psychic abilities through the roof. I was already psychic, but it just made me so much more clear
Mhm.
about everything and just more brain power. But the adrenal fatigue that resulted as a result, and I didn't know. See, if someone just told me that the consequence of that can be adrenal fatigue, I didn't know. I found out the hard way. I was nearly disabled for like at least 6 months. I could hardly do anything at all because of the adrenal fatigue from the protocols. They didn't. It's not like I was dying. I wasn't dying. I just had no energy to do anything at all. And a lot of people don't understand that. Oh, you're just lazy. No, no, no. It's not lazy. Like if I did blood work, you could see that my body is not producing the type of hormones, the type of vitamins and minerals that the body produces. Well, vitamins that actually minerals too, because the minerals get drained when you do
Correct.
heavy metal detoxes. It pulls out the bad stuff, but it pulls out some of the good stuff inevitably because the good and
Right.
the bad are all connected. So it ends up taking chunks out of the good stuff too, and it takes a while for the body to rebuild its own supply of vitamins and minerals and protein and muscle and bone and all that.
Mhm.
So I mean, it was like I was in a literal fight for my life. I was, and I
And
knew
if
it.
you could have had someone support you and support that your adrenals and that knew that, hey, we got to support these adrenals while you're
I
going
I
through
had to
this,
figure it out
would have
myself.
been a game changer,
Well,
right?
it would have been.
But look what
Well,
you've learned.
exactly. I had to learn it on my own. I
Mhm.
figured it out on my own.
Fantastic.
So, but why do you think most people don't figure it out on their own? Because most people don't. They can't solve like cancer, Lyme, the kinds of things you help with. Most people can't solve these problems on their own. Why?
They're not taught. So remember I told you when I was growing up, my grandma did things I didn't understand why she did them, right? Like cough syrup. Why can't I just have the cool one, right? Why do I have to take this stuff? It's nasty, right? My mom and my grandma gave me such a gift. Not now there was 8 kids and not all of us got that gift. Some of them strayed way far away, right? But for the ones that got it, there's a couple of us. Um, we were hyper aware of what our body was telling us and how to deal with things, right? And what things meant, right? I knew pain was a messenger from way back when, right? Most people don't know that. I knew a fever is your friend. My mom would never treat a fever. It was, you got a cool rag. She made sure you were hydrated. There was always soup. So soup wasn't even just given when we were sick. There was always a cup of soup served with everything. We always had soup. Um, and parents aren't taught anymore. Nobody knows. It seems so weird. They ask the dumbest questions and they're not dumb. These people are highly intelligent people. They're not taught. So what grandma knew is not something that this generation knows. And it's been lost. It's been lost in the last couple of generations, right? Because I think my mom and my grandma, they were older, but they were old school. So they were even further back. They didn't go through that 1950s canned good generation, right? Where everything was canned and boxed. Like we never had boxed macaroni and cheese growing up. My friends, they got SpaghettiOs. I didn't get SpaghettiOs. Why didn't I get SpaghettiOs? Right. And so I went through a phase in my life where I was like junking out on everything. I remember I was addicted to McDonald's when I was like 21. I just went through and I was addicted to McDonald's. If I could go through, it was a sausage biscuit. If I could go through and get a sausage biscuit, I'd do it every day. And that stuff is really toxic. It's really addictive. Right. And my mom would always say, Shiloh, you're hurting yourself. Don't do that. But I knew better. So we always come back to home. People don't know better. They're not being taught. My daughter can tell you what to do. My son, my middle son, oh, my two middle sons could tell you what to do. My oldest, not at all. Right. So I think that I think people just aren't given that information.
I
That's
think
all.
I think you're
People,
right, but you have to go out and seek it. And I think they also don't seek it, and you have to be a seeker because nobody brings it to you on a golden platter. All pretty much all the information I have, I sought it, I paid for it, I fought for it. Sometimes I it came to me in a dream, but I got it because I
right.
looked for it and I prayed for it. Because I know that this kind of gold, I'm going to call it gold, because yeah, it is priceless knowledge. Knowledge is very expensive and even priceless, and I think people are not seeking it. That's why they're not getting it. But if
I
they
don't know. I disagree. I think more and more people are coming out. I think our generation isn't seeking it. They're not seeking it until they're sick. But I think this younger generation is. And maybe that's, we met today. Maybe that's what we're supposed to do. Maybe we're supposed to teach, right?
Oh yeah, I think we're absolutely supposed to teach, but also the internet made a huge difference. Internet proliferates information. Like when I was growing up, we didn't have an internet, and if you needed to know something, you went to a library and looked for it, and you didn't necessarily know what you were looking for. You had to just look, open books, and read and talk to
Right.
people, ask people, and now you can go online and type in how to, and the information is there. I think people are.
Well, within reason, right? A lot of stuff censored, right?
That
So
is true. That is true. But there's a
you
lot
have to look through
of
all the pharmaceutical headings
yeah,
and
yeah,
get down
that's
to like page 5, and then you'll find, but it's there. It's there. You just have to dig.
and it may be that the younger people are seeking more because it's easier to find.
Hmm.
When I was younger, you really had to, like I had to, you had to talk to people and they
Right,
weren't always going to tell you. You had to actually form relationships to learn from other people. You couldn't
right.
just ask AI for whatever.
It's true.
So, Shiloh, one important question: how is your service different from other options or services out there? There's like different types of naturopaths, integrative medicine practitioners, Vedic, like herbal doctor. Like there's different types of holistic, right? So, how is yours different?
I guess in a sense, I'd really make Dr. Silla very angry for saying this because she is a strict homeopath, but I think that I use what's called a shotgun approach, right? So I use homeopathy, herbs, food. I use even supplements. I use them in conjunction for the easiest plan possible. I call it kind of like the lazy man's plan, right? You don't have to go through step 1, step 2, step 3. I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to do the first 3 things. And then when everything's working, now you can do the next steps, right? I just make it so easy. And I think that's why. And I'm more food based. So if I can find a food and you're willing to prepare your food, I'm going to give you a food option rather than a supplement, right? For example, instead of a mineral, I'm going to tell you about salt. We're going to talk a lot about salt. We're going to talk a lot about soup, right? And so I think that's why. Not the supplements are bad, because I think that most people, especially most people, I don't know, I think most people prefer a supplement over the work. But if I could teach you to do the work, you're forever okay.
And when you
You'll
say
never
work,
go
can you
back.
define that just a little bit? What does that mean?
That lifestyle change that has to
Oh,
happen. Preparing your food, sourcing good food, um, avoiding the drive-through. What can I make at home that I can't get on the road? Right. And so if you're willing to do that work, and it's also a spiritual work too, because we have to figure out what got us here. Right. So I pray for my clients. I pray really hard for my clients. Um, I feel like, remember we talked about the Rife as being a boost, right? I really feel that prayer is a boost. So when I pray over a client, I'm helping to lift them up. And I'm just asking for guidance because I don't know all the answers, right? But they know the answer. You know the answer as an individual. You might not know it logically, it might not be right here, but deep down inside, your body knows what it needs. And that's where the Bioscan comes in. The Bioscan is such a game changer. And Zyto too, it's the same type of system, but it's able to decipher. It's a communication, it's a conversation between your cell and a machine. And your body, your own personal body, is telling that machine what it needs. Right? And then I'm able to formulate based on that. That's powerful information. It's not me assuming because you look like this person or your symptoms are very, are very similar to this group of people. So we're gonna treat you like this group of people. I'm able to specifically get you down on an individual basis, what your body needs compared to anybody else's body. So I don't know if that's special, but it's different.
I think it is special. I think and I think everyone needs it. Everyone actually needs it. So in the last few years, somehow transitioned into being a professional athlete. So I just by the amount of training that I do, 2 hours a day, about 6 days a week. That if my goal is to fight professionally MMA, I'll be training 3 or 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, maybe 7 days a week. That's a whole other level. There's really no way to do it without supplementation and very clean food. I never cheat. I can't afford it, but also I'm very sensitive to it. It really makes me very sick. So, and now I work more with athletes rather than like sick individuals, people who have very high level achievement goals and performance goals. Different types of athletics.
Mhm.
But how can your services help people who have these high level achievement goals in
Hmm.
their sports?
I work with practitioners like you. So it's the knowledge that's gathered from others. So I have a whole network of practitioners, which I know you do too, that work together. I'm not an athlete. I don't know a lot about training, but I know you. And I also know what your body's telling me through that bioscan. So I can see, oh my goodness, you're not digesting proteins very well, or you're struggling with maybe you're struggling with an electrolyte imbalance. I can see all of that. And so that's the information that you need as a person. And then if I don't know, I'm going to refer to you because
I do.
you
It's really
know.
interesting what you just said. So years ago, before I went on this holistic natural path, it must have been 25 years ago. I remember some doctor saying, "Oh yeah," like a regular conventional doctor, "Oh, you're not digesting proteins very well." I'm like, "Well, what do I do?" "Oh, stop eating protein." That was the answer. Stop eating protein. Basically,
Wow.
become vegan. That would be eat bugs. And I'm like, that's your answer? That's your solution to an athlete? Just become vegan, don't eat protein? How ridiculous. You can't build muscle without protein. So 25 years later, obviously now I know, but it's taking like betaine, right? Taking certain types of digestive enzymes. How hard was
Yes.
that to tell me that? Just take digestive enzymes. Take betaine.
Right. Strengthen your stomach acid.
Yeah, yeah, right. But simple stuff like that, but it really helps. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing more of now is working more with like I just started to work with a young guy in his 20s who wants to eventually to be a professional MMA fighter. He's very obese. So he has a ways to go to lose the fat first and build strength because he gasses out very, very quickly. So, but he could, he needs everything. Someone like that, because of his high level goals. That it's hard to be a professional fighter. It's
Correct.
very tough on the body. There's a lot of injuries. I guess similar to your husband, right? You can't stop him. He's gonna be injured by his bad lifestyle. But in a way, like I eat very clean. I take lots of supplements, but I'm gonna fight, and that's I'm gonna get injuries. It's inevitable. I know I'm signing up for that. But I'm not that I don't want the injuries, but it's a little bit inevitable. Even in training, it happens. And there has to be a way to heal those injuries without surgery, ideally. What do you have for that? Healing injuries without surgery.
Oh, great information there. So not only can we do things like taking supplements such as glucosamine chondroitin with MSM, depending on what the situation is, but then we can also look at things like Comfrey. Have you ever heard of Comfrey?
Yeah.
Yeah, Comfrey actually heals tissue and bone. It's so powerful. The tannins are so high in Comfrey that we can take, I make my own Comfrey balm. But you make this balm with Comfrey, and you can use things like peppermint in it and wintergreen in it that's going to help and helichrysum that's going to help to ease the pain too, right? And make it a pain cream as well. But you rub Comfrey cream on there, and as long as you're diligent, that tissue is going to heal, and it's going to heal very quickly, right? It could be a broken bone. It's going to heal very quickly.
I would love for you to have your own line of stuff that,
I do. I do. I
and
do.
if you can figure out a way to use DMSO in that, it's going to be like a miracle.
Fantastic.
I'm not going to say the word, but if it has comfrey, helichrysum, and DMSO, oh my God.
We can do it. We can do it.
Yeah. Let's figure out a way. Right now, I make my own topical and my own DMSO stuff. I like people can't like, what are you doing? How are you able to stay so youthful and so young? People think I'm in my 20s. People all the time think, I'm like, how do you think I'm in my 20s? I'm over 40. And it's because I'm using all of these different types of supplements and different naturopathic things. But I'm learning from you all the time, but I also, learned a lot on my own. I tinker with it. I figure out my own recipes. Basically everything that other people don't do, I do. That's what I do. You know so much more than me. I just figure out what I need for me, for my stuff. I don't really necessarily know for everyone's stuff like you do. So, but yeah, if we can figure out something for athletes, I think it would be amazing.
I think that would be fantastic. Like, there's no reason why we can't use something like a DMSO in there. There's no reason. It just can't be liquid. We have to change the formula. It has to be made into a fat, but it's possible.
You could mix. So let's say you have the thickener, the fat thickener. You can add DMSO to that and all these other herbs and just make it into a balm with DMSO. As long as it's in a glass container, not like a metal container, because DMSO will.
Yep, everything, all my stuff is in glass, all of
Yeah,
it. But I also make tinctures. I make tinctures. I make homeopathics. I make balms. I make all kinds of tallow balms, like healing balm, a comfrey balm. I make a skin balm for like wrinkles. Um, yeah, I don't know. I even make hot sauce. It's so crazy here.
that is awesome. Yeah, your husband is so lucky because you do all of these amazing things and you're just gushing with talent. And we need more people like you.
Well, when we meet up next time, I have to show you a tour of the greenhouse. So I really need to do that because we're in the process of putting the trusses up. And so we're getting so close. I have a whole forest of banana trees and pomegranate trees and guava trees. I have guava ripe on the tree right now. Pineapples. I'm in Wisconsin. Like, you can't grow that stuff here, but with our greenhouse, we'll be able to grow it all here. And I really need to take you a tour of my property, my gardens, my home. Like, even my walls are natural clay. They
Wow.
actually breathe clean air. They clean my air. Like, there's so many things that we've done here. It's just fantastic.
So I want our audience to know that that bucket in the corner, that is not a dirt bucket
My
in a
butter churn.
that is a butter churner. So just so our audience, because so they're not confused that you really practice what you preach. You make your own butter, right?
No, we don't use that one anymore. I actually use my mixer for my butter churn now because it's so much easier. I don't have to stand there and do this anymore. But that was my grandma's.
Wow, that is
Yeah,
incredible. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
No,
So it's fantastic. But thank you. Thanks for having me. I
I
really
love this
appreciated your time.
conversation. Yes, and I hope that we continue as often as possible, and just to continue to share with our audience what it means to actually live a holistic lifestyle. Because like I'm in here in New York City, I meet a lot of people. They haven't been out of their neighborhood ever. All they know is the concrete jungle of their like boxed buildings, and their mind is like in a box. It's the shape. Their mind is in the shape of a box, and just someone just can just plant the idea that you can live like you live, and it can be good and healthy, and you're not somewhere on the like on another planet. You are just like a few hour drive away.
Right.
So yeah, and just keep sharing the knowledge, right?
Mhm.
Is there anything that you think people absolutely have to know, that like the one thing that will just absolutely help them in some major way in their life, like pivot them out of uh unhealth into health?
it all goes back to hydration. It all goes back to food. If it's not a whole piece of food, it's not healthy for you. So if you could at least balance and find a balance of 80-20, your life will change. And if you're struggling, like if you're struggling, I can't make all this food every day, make soup. Soup, they should call me the soup doctor. We make soup for everything. I do, I make soup
Well,
for
in
everything.
traditional Chinese medicine, yeah, that's what they do. They boil everything, and it like extracts the medicine out of those roots or those herbs or whatever. But I think there's a consciousness that goes into it. It's not just the water. It's the cook, the person who is doing the cooking, putting their intentionality into like there's a and shamans do this too. It's a lot. It has to do with respect. If
Right,
honor and respect that root or that herb, it will give you its medicinal power. So it's not just elements working on each other. There's actually a spiritual process that makes the soup healing rather than just particles. And that's the big difference between holistic versus reductionist science. Reductionist reduces everything to just parts, and there's no life in there. Whereas holistic, it involves a practitioner with a soul and a mind, a conscious awareness that facilitates a transformation in the person who's unwell.
right.
And the
It's all
soup,
about intention.
yeah, and in a way, the soup is just a delivery system of that more enlightened consciousness, right?
Right.
That's kind of how I see it. Thank you so much, Shiloh. I so love this conversation. Have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll talk next week.
All right. Take care.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you.
I hope you really enjoyed that conversation with Shiloh Thompson. We've been working together for over 3 years. She does all of the naturopathic assessments for my clients, hundreds and hundreds of them, incredibly accurate. You would get anything between 20 and 60 pages of very accurate, detailed data about everything that is going on in your body, with your organs, with your bones, with your neurotransmitters, your brain. It's the kind of data you would never get from if you just went to a conventional doctor and even got something like a metabolic panel or a blood test or a urine test. Any of those standard things, they don't show this kind of information. This information is directly actionable. There's charts and graphs that show exactly what is going on with you. It's very visually user friendly. We also do a variety of several other assessments if necessary. Between the different assessments that we do, we get a very clear picture of what's going on for you. And as a coach, I need that information to design a map from where you are now to where you want to go with your health and fitness goals. And my clients have achieved incredible results. I have over 165 five-star reviews from very happy clients who were able to achieve their goals within some very reasonable amount of time, whether it was 6 months or a few years, depending on the goals. Some people needed to lose 80 pounds, 100 pounds. I've had clients who recovered from cancer. I have clients that I helped to get off of dialysis, clients that needed to recover functionality in their organs, people who had very serious health issues, and people who had fitness goals. They needed to build muscle. They never quite could figure out how to build muscle, or they could not figure out how to lose weight. After over 20 years of working with clients as a healer, as a therapist, as a fitness and nutrition coach, I have designed a complete system for you that accounts for everything that you need: weight loss, lean muscle gain, sleep support, detoxing support, energy support, focus support, and much more. In the system, there are meal days and cleanse days or intermittent fasting days. There is herbal and nutritional support for you to do intermittent fasting safely. There's meal replacement shakes, healthy meal recipes, herbal support for detoxing, herbal support for cleanse days, herbal support for daily energy and vitality. There's sleep support, herbal support for mood and emotional regulation, herbal support for stress, managing stress and stressful environments, nootropics for cognitive performance, focus and concentration, collagen for hair, skin, and nails, herbal skin and beauty products, supplementation for targeted health and overall health for men, women, and children. Yes, these products are so safe and holistic that they're even safe for children and pets, by the way. There's products for animals as well. There's targeted fitness nutrition. There's the meal replacement protein shakes, whey or plant-based, slow release protein, and fast release protein shakes. There's BCAAs or branched chain amino acids, pre-workout, post-workout, creatine, natural herbal support for fitness performance level of energy. So not just daily energy, but if you train 2, 3, 4 hours a day, you need a lot more of a certain type of energy for your fast twitch muscles to perform, or if you're an endurance athlete, for your slow twitch muscles to perform. Electrolytes, vitamins and minerals, collagen for joints and gut health, and much more. There's, of course, fitness training guidance for people who want to work with me as a personal coach for their fitness goals. There's also meal prep when you travel, how to eat when you travel or on the go. This is huge for many of my very busy professional clients. They have no idea how to eat healthy and stay on track with their fitness and health goals when they are traveling or on the go. I got this covered. The entire system is simplified and made very convenient for you and for your whole family. All of the products are organic, non-GMO, low glycemic, soy-free, gluten-free, and some of them even come from the Amazon rainforest. They're very responsibly sourced and spiritual. To learn how this complete holistic nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle system can help you to achieve your health and fitness goals and overcome the challenges you are having to achieving your goals, contact me to book your free 15-minute call. You got nothing to lose. It's a free call. The contact link is in the description. You can work with me online. All of my services have been available online since actually even before COVID. I always offered my services by phone and online for over 20 years, even before other people were doing it or before it became very popular. I got training in how to offer services on. More than 50% of my clients are actually online and they get results. I have over 165 5-star reviews from very happy clients who got their goals, who were able to achieve their goals, whether it was weight loss or muscle gain or recovering from a very serious health issue or trauma from the past. And a lot of those clients were online. However, now I also do offer personal fitness coaching and nutrition coaching in person. I'm a personal fitness coach at the UFC gym in Queens and Long Island area in New York City. Whether you're interested in online services or in-person services, please book your free 15-minute call. The contact link is in the description. Stay blessed, not stressed.